Live from Berlinetisch Politischnikov, this is the Best Care Anywhere podcast. I'm your host, Anthony, and oh boys, it has been a very interesting 2 weeks. How are y'all doing? Yeah, let's start with you.
Yeah.
No. Hang on, Ethan. Let's start with Jared. Jared, if I can, I have my notes here. To quote you from last week's podcast, approximately 2 seconds in, you said something to the effect of, "My throat's feeling weird." Would you care to follow up on that?
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
My past self was correct. Yeah, I had COVID.
You
Finally.
made it all 3 years.
Yeah.
You dodged that bullet, and then it hit you like a fucking freight train.
Yeah. And here we are, still recovering.
Genuinely, how are you feeling?
Better than I was. Still getting tired much more quickly than I should be. But
yeah, that's what it does. I think I got it maybe half as bad as you did. It was still like a month or more before I felt like genuinely back to some sort of normal. So, that sucks. I'm glad you're feeling better, though. That was fun.
Yeah, so am I.
I'd ask if you got up to anything while you were sick, because, you know, when you have like a normal sickness, you can be like watching movies and drinking soup. But I think everyone knows at this point with COVID, you're just kind of either unconscious or not sure what day it is.
Yeah, there was about a week-long stretch where I didn't really do anything.
Anthony, I'm like 90% certain you don't drink soup.
Do you drink soup or eat soup?
It depends. It depends on the number of solid particulate in soup. Like if it's a can of like basic bitch Campbell's chicken noodle with like the short little noodles and the tiny chunks of chicken, you can drink soup.
Now
you can drink a broth. Now
I
you
don't
can't drink.
consume.
You can attempt to drink a chowder. I wouldn't. That seems like a choking hazard.
Now hang on. I don't consume any kind of healthy soup-like consistence unless it is a consistency that I can like stand in and sink and drown in.
What?
If that stuff is not thicker than a bowl of oatmeal, then I am not interested.
I think we need to discuss at a time that isn't this podcast the difference between thick, chunky. Like there's a difference between thick and chunky. You can have a thin, chunky
humans
soup.
Or in soups, or what are we talking about?
Jesus God.
A human soup.
I knew it was going to be one of these episodes. Okay. Anyway, well, I'm glad you're feeling better. We can have a soup discussion, not now.
We'll have a Patreon, uploaded to Patreon soup discussion.
We don't have a Patreon.
Episode. Yet.
Well, yeah, give it time because I'm already recording my Suicide is Painless cover.
Oh, God help. Anyway, moving right along. We saw you in person, Ethan. You visited us.
Yes,
you returned
live
from the land of corn.
And in the flesh. Despite TSA's best efforts, I made it onto a plane and graced the small town wherever those two may or may not live with my presence once again.
Excellent.
And it was good. It was good.
Excellent.
We had a grand old time.
And while you were here, we played some Grand Theft Auto, and you may or may not have, in Grand Theft Auto, totally in a video game, committed some misdemeanors. Misdemeanors are a felony. I meant to look this up.
You know what? I got to tell you, I looked it up, and apparently road signs in Grand Theft Auto cost between $100 and $500 to replace. So I think it's
a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. Yeah. Petty theft. Cool.
Yeah.
On a totally unrelated note, did you get any new wall art recently?
You know, as a matter of fact, I did. I was at one of my favorite antique stores, and I found a county line sign for free, believe it or not. I had a really good talk with the owner.
They didn't want anything for it?
Right off. No, well, I tried to pay them, but
they just wanted to take it off your hands. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they just needed the space. You know, it was kind of clearing up.
The crazy thing is, it was from the county you grew up in. What are the odds?
Probably. I mean, I don't know how many counties there are in the U.S. Otherwise, I could tell you.
There's at least 2.
Yeah, so 1 and 2, at least.
Jesus Christ. Well, I'm happy that you made that find at a totally in an antique shop.
And I was happy to see you guys. To all our listeners out there, believe it or not, we actually kind of are okay with each other's existence when we're not spewing bullshit on this here podcast.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
As long as you're not calling me for bail, perfectly fine. But so yeah, we're all back in our respective homes. I hope was everyone's Thanksgiving good? How was Thanksgiving?
It was good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I couldn't complain.
Good. Before we get into this week's episode, we do have some follow-up on a couple of subjects.
Naturally.
First and foremost, regarding our Marvel tangent at the beginning of last episode.
Oh my god.
I'm going to be honest, I don't remember that at all.
Oh boy. We had just seen Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, aka Vibranium Boogaloo. And I had just posed the question to you of how did you like it and what were your kind of general thoughts on Marvel and Marvel Burnout. We politely asked the older generations of the audience and those who may not be into Marvel to just, go make a coffee and come back while we discussed. But we actually did get a reply about the Marvel part of our conversation that I just wanted to mention. And it is from Chad Smith over on the YouTube. He said, Marvel take from a Gen Xer, the current phase of movies and shows are decent, but are starting to feel a little bit too much like homework. They're all built around the need. They're all built around the need to function as commercials for the next thing or make references to the last thing that you better have watched or you'll be missing part of the story. He says that the early movies weren't really any different, but it was clear that they were building to the Infinity Saga. At this point, he has no clue what they're building up to. So
that's a pretty good take, actually.
That kind of mirrors what we were talking about, that it was super easy to follow and get hooked, and now it's just kind of like, where are we at? So, yeah, there's your Marvel moment in this MASH podcast. The only other thing I'll mention, unless you guys have any follow-up that you would like to mention, before we get into this episode, the air date for this episode is January 14th, 1972. And I know I said this is only going to be a once every couple of episodes thing, but there's a significant piece of on this day in history that is very relevant to the show MASH and the message the show is trying to impart on the viewers that I couldn't ignore it. So the 14th of January, this episode aired. On the 22nd of January, later that week, President Richard Nixon announces the planned ceasefire and end of American involvement in the Vietnam War for January the 27th. So, yeah, just another little news fact to kind of put you in the mindset of when these episodes were airing.
I thought you were going to tell us that American Pie by Don McLean was number 2 on the charts, but okay, fine.
No, and again, you guys are more than welcome to find interesting little other tidbits, because I'm just going to the Wikipedia page for that date and seeing what Wikipedia says are like the major world events. So sorry, Don McLean's American Pie didn't make Wikipedia's cut for like the top 10 events for that week.
Boo! Boo!
In all seriousness, is that true? Was Don McLean's American Pie top of the charts this week?
Number 2 on the charts that day, yes.
Hell yeah. All right. If there's nothing else, I'm going to put the lid on my Dr. Pepper that I almost knocked over all over my keyboard and desk. That would have been a very interesting thing to hear happen. Oh boy. All right. So, without further ado, let's get into Season 1, Episode 15, Tuttle. Air date January 14th, 1972. Directed by William Wiard. This is his second MASH that he has directed. Previously, he had directed Henry, Please Come Home. And he's got a couple more coming up in the first few seasons that we're going to see. Written by Bruce Shelly and David Ketchum, who have a very interesting list of credits, if I may share very quickly. David Ketchum, again, lots of stuff from the 60s through to the early 90s, mid 90s. His most prominent thing is the 1960s TV run of Get Smart, the original secret agent Get Smart show. That I think they did a couple movies with. I can't remember what actor they did that who is Agent Smart in the early 2000s remake. I want to say it was. I can't think of his name. Michael Scott from The Office. Why can't I think of his name? Fuck.
Something?
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell. Yeah. Wow.
I just kept wanting to say Gru from fucking Despicable Me. I am Gru. Good lord. I'm pretty sure that was it, or was it? I'm getting confused because they've both done Secret Agent. It's either him or it's Pee-wee's Playhouse guy. I can't think of him. Yeah. My actor name part of my brain is broken tonight apparently because I can't think of anyone. But anyway, yeah. So he wrote for several episodes, many episodes of the original Get Smart TV show, and then the other gentleman, Bruce Shelly, has a also interesting line of shows that he wrote for, including lots of kids shows like PB&J Otter, 101 Dalmatians, and just before our time, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, The Adventures of the Super Mario Brothers. He wrote episodes of Captain Planet, The Legend of Zelda TV series. This is like late 80s, early 90s when they were turning.
He's a major nerd.
Yeah, when he was turning lots of video games into TV shows. So yeah, I'm assuming decent TV shows because they ran for 50, 40 episodes each. It looks like so. Yeah, the 80s, man, the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So all that being said, all these people worked on and wrote Tuttle. I've kind of asked the same question because I think we're on a run of good episodes building up from Edwina. Mm-hmm. After Edwina and then Love Story, how did you guys feel about Tuttle going into? Were you hoping for another banger? Were you thinking it was going to level off again? What were we feeling?
I wasn't really sure what to expect, to be honest. Yeah. But I was pleasantly surprised the direction this episode took.
Ethan, how about you? Did you have any thoughts going into this episode?
I did not have any clue what I could possibly expect.
Our show opens almost similarly to Edwina, where there's it's dark, there's spooky music, something's afoot. And we see Trapper and Hawkeye sneaking supplies out to a 6x. Very shadily, it seems like they're doing something not okay because they mentioned the black market. How much would this get on the black market? And you're
up to no good.
Are they up to no good? And then they start reading off what they're shipping: blankets, penicillin, powdered milk. And you're like, okay. And then we see random insert none in Korea, who I love that they're like, what should we call this nun? And they went with the most stereotypical
nun name,
Catholic nun name, Sister Teresa, which, God bless, literally. Sister Teresa, by the way, this is one of her few on-screen appearances, but she will be a very heavily recurring off-screen character, both her and her orphanage, just because it's an easy way to work in,
out of camp plots.
Yeah, out of camp plots, basically. Or something happening outside of camp that drives a plot. So, yeah, look forward to more of Sister Teresa and the Orphans. Which, if... I don't know how you get excited about Orphans, but, yay. So.
The new boy band rising the charts. Sister Teresa and the Orphans.
Oh, no. Sounds
and
like
their
a
new
really...
hit single, Please Feed Me.
Sometimes you say things. That's it. You just say it. I'm imagining a really bad version of the Beach Boys. That's what I'm imagining. Oh no. Or really sad Alvin and the Chipmunks. Oh boy. Well, anyway.
I wish I had living relatives.
Shut up.
I'm sorry.
You don't sound very apologetic.
You have to understand, I am my own target audience, so when I say these things...
Believe me, we know.
I'm picking up recycling in the street. Hoping. God damn it. We're terrible people.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can edit this out so we look better than we actually are.
Oh, thank God.
So they're getting supplies for Sister Teresa's orphanage, and they're using a pseudonym. They're using a false alias to acquire these supplies. And that alias is Captain Jonathan Tuttle, one of the finest officers at the 477. We come to find out the next morning in the swamp, Radar is asking for the supply requisition to be signed. And Hawkeye signs it, Captain Tuttle. And Tuttle is his childhood imaginary friend that he used to always blame things on. And he just brought that little white lie with him into the army, which, all right, makes sense. If you need to circumvent, government regulations in a time before electronic records, fake alias, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about this on the next episode, but it just bums me out every day that I live in a world where my electronic footprint is larger than my actual shoe size, and I can't just move to the next town over and make up a new life.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very, very hard. We're gonna explore that because I need no reasons that you need to uproot yourself and disappear. But more about that later. During this conversation, I will say this because it's just such an awkward moment. Radar mentions that he had an imaginary friend.
Oh, I was perfectly prepared to gloss over that.
No, it's too awkward.
This is awkward Radar. This is peak awkward Radar. Yeah.
You had my imaginary friend's name was Shirley. Your imaginary friend was a girl. Yeah. And is it Trapper that asks, with a very mischievous look in his eye, almost inappropriate look in his eye, what'd she look like? To which Radar responds, just like me, only with tiny little breasts.
Yeah.
Now, Ethan, when Jared and I will leave a call after you say something?
Naturally.
This is that moment.
Yeah, I kind of
would
like
you
Radar
to.
in this moment.
Yeah. Ethan says something stupid. All of us in the Discord call out. Get out. You're not allowed in here anymore. Although I don't think you've said anything quite this cringy, though.
Give it time.
And awkward.
The night's still young.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. So, yeah. Anyway.
Staff Sergeant Radar O'Reilly makes most awkward comment ever, asked to leave the swamp.
He is a corporal, not a staff sergeant.
He is. I'm sorry.
You dingus.
I know.
So Radar leaves. He is once again pulling the old paperwork switcheroo on Henry, getting him to sign off on all the supply requisitions, among other paperwork. And during this, he asks, who is this new Tuttle person? And Radar is able to kind of gloss over it and be like, oh yeah, you met him. Which, it doesn't look like it in the show, but a MASH unit would actually have close to 200 to 300 people at it. I think the show's peak size is only about 50 or 60, just because it's a TV show. You can't really manage 300 extras. But in reality, this could be a theoretical thing you could pull for a little bit before too many people got wise. But I do love that this little white lie does start to snowball, though, because Henry is like, oh yeah, I totally met Tuttle, and he kind of builds it up in his mind, and then he says Tuttle should be officer of the day. And Radar is rightfully concerned, because he's like, I don't know how we're going to pull this off, but okay.
Yep.
And again, I love the kind of, if you give a mouse a cookie, kind of snowballing that is happening, because Once
It just
Henry
keeps
makes
digging
that,
the hole deeper.
once Henry makes that decision, then Frank hears that Tuttle's replacing him on OD duty. And Frank is so insecure that he immediately sees this as some sort of threat to his
officerness,
his masculinity. Yeah, I don't know, something. Margaret doesn't care. Margaret's like, if you're free, I have a new lecture on pelvic deviation.
Is that what they're calling it now?
That's what Hot Lips is calling it.
Oh, Frank.
I'd like to deviate your pelvis. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, well, she said it. So Frank is still concerned. He's looking at the paper. He's like, yeah, Tuttle should have presented himself to me. I am second in command.
He's rude.
He is immediately Frank's insecurity is showing huge right here. Like, new guy takes over a position he volunteered for, immediately suspicious of him. Like, goddamn, Frank, I need you to tone it down. It escalates even further because now Frank and Margaret are trying to sniff out who Tuttle is, and I don't know. What did you guys think of the progression of the episode? Because it feels like it's moving really fast.
It felt a little shorter than some episodes, I think, just because things kept moving throughout the episode. There was not a lot of dead time. I will say it was a little irritating that the second oh god, what's her actual name?
Margaret?
Not Hot Lips. Margaret, yes.
It
is kind of disappointing that Margaret's instinct, whenever she encounters the slightest obstacle or roadblock, is to immediately call General Clayton. Just immediately drop whatever you're doing. Call General Clayton.
We're getting there, but so Frank and Margaret harass Radar and say, "Oh, we want to see Tuttle's personnel file." Which, okay, he stalls long enough for Trapper and Hawkeye to start writing a false personnel file for Tuttle. Which this is, I love this so much. When was Tuttle born? 1924.
Good year for doctors.
Where was he? Or mother? I just love this whole readout. Mother, 1. Father, yes. Where was he born? And Radar's like, oh, can he be from my hometown? And Hawkeye's like, no.
No. They've got enough to be proud of.
They've got enough to be proud of. I don't think we've actually heard where Radar is canonically from yet, have we?
I don't think so. Somewhere, I think.
I know we've said it on the podcast. I don't think the show has told us yet.
Don't think so.
Yeah.
No, well, wait, what about the episode? It might have even been last episode, A Love Story.
Oh,
didn't it come up in the, passing conversation?
They said the name of the department store. I don't know if they said the name of the town. I'll have to go back and listen. But Trapper then suggests Battle Creek, Michigan, which is an actual place, by the way. What religion should they make him? To which Trapper suggests atheist. To which Hawkeye responds, he doesn't believe in atheism, and I just love that little joke. I don't think it even gets. I think it gets maybe this tiniest little bit of a laugh track. But I love that it's one of those, blink and you miss it little jokes. Like, I don't believe in atheism, which is just funny. I like it.
Well, but then what they settle on is even funnier. Now,
I would like to turn to our podcast's unofficial expert in strange religions and trees. Jared, how do you feel about druidism?
Oh, yeah, they're tree people.
They're tree people.
They can pray at a bush. Sure.
Druid reformed. They can pray at bushes. Yeah. And I've heard this joke before, and I've never understood it. Radar asks, what's a druid? Hawkeye says they can pray to trees. And then Radar goes, a tree surgeon. I have heard the joke, quote, calling someone a tree surgeon, implying they're a bad doctor. Does anyone, and does anyone, both you two in the call or anyone in the audience, does anyone understand why that's a dig? Like, is a tree surgeon an actual thing? Like, I don't know. I don't get the joke.
They are actual things.
Okay.
I don't know if this is like a comment on like, oh, you wanted to be a real doctor, but you weren't good enough, so you just became a doctor for trees instead. Is that maybe that's what they're trying to go for here?
Maybe. Now, again, is a tree surgeon just an arborist, or is it like an actual, like, what surgery does a tree need? I don't help me. Does anyone know?
I mean,
you're the closest we have to an expert.
There can be problems with trees, and I don't know. They can have hip cankers. They can have growths. They can have tumors. It very much depends on the type of I don't want to say injury, but the type of what you can do. If it's just like a massive hip canker and it's, most of the way through the diameter of the tree, there's probably not a lot you can do except for take it down before it falls down. But
okay,
I don't know. There are things that there are reasons to need tree doctors. Yes.
Okay.
Especially if it's like a ye olde family tree that grandma was buried under, then you'd want to get a tree doctor.
So it seems to me that they're just poking fun. Anyone who calls someone a tree surgeon is poking fun of the fact that you're not as proficient of a doctor as you claim to be. So Frank is a tree surgeon.
So Frank is a tree surgeon?
Yes.
I think I'm understanding better is the profession where you perform necessary work on trees to make them healthier is a tree surgeon, but because it shares the same designation and title as an actual doctor of people, it's kind of like there's a joke later in the season where one character tells another, "I'm going to tell everyone that your brother's in prison," and the person's like, "My brother's a warden." Like, I'm a surgeon. Yeah, a tree surgeon. Shut the fuck up, Tim. Like, that's the vibe I'm getting. I understand better now. But yeah, I never understood the making fun of people by calling them tree surgeons. So, yeah. And after that strange tangent, so he's a druid reformed captain from Battle Creek, Michigan, who graduated from the prestigious medical school Berlin Polytechnic because they needed to find somewhere that they wouldn't look up records for.
Yep.
So let me get this straight. He is a young man in his late 20s who was born in 1924 and grew up theoretically in or around Germany through the 30s and 40s.
Yep.
What's the issue here?
No, nothing.
I don't know.
Hawkeye, sensing the strange set of coincidences they have aligned, recommends that perhaps he should have graduated from Adolf Hitler High. To which even Hawkeye's like, that's a bit much. They start to put much there. Just a wee bit much. He starts to write his physical description. Eyes, he's 6'4", eyes hazel, hair auburn, weight 195 pounds, and Trapper suddenly realizes he's basically describing Trapper. Which is hilarious considering that one Margaret Houlihan is smitten by Captain Tuttle.
Can you blame her?
I mean...
Absolutely.
No. I mean, look at Wayne Rogers and tell me you blame her. So they get Henry to pull the fake file. As Margaret and Frank are reading it, they're like both somewhat impressed, but also skeptical. And this then prompts Margaret to, once again, the trope of Frank and Margaret, Henry being ineffective, call whatever general of the week it is on the show. Yeah. Luckily, Radar is on top of everything. He grabs Hawkeye and says, "Hey, Margaret's trying to get through to General Clayton." And he and the HQ phone operator Sparky work out a way to patch the call back to the 407 And real quick, Sergeant Pryor, aka Sparky, is another character who we're going to hear a lot of throughout the show because he kind of helps facilitate some of the shenanigans that occur throughout the series. But this is the only time we hear him called by his actual name, Sergeant Pryor, and it's the only time we see him on camera. Fun fact.
Oh.
So he is played by, and there's this weird trend in the last few episodes where Edwina kind of bled over into Love Story. Love Story is about to bleed over a little bit into Tuttle because the actor's name who plays Sergeant Pryor is Dennis Fimple. Possible relation to Elroy, don't know. He's another one of these actors. This is his only appearance in the MASH series. He had a lot of other one-off appearances in a bunch of other TV shows. Gomer Pyle, Starsky and Hutch, Battlestar Galactica, Greatest American Hero, weirdly enough, and the Dukes of Hazzard. Please don't sing.
Well, you're giving me two options of two theme songs, so
Well, how about this? I will placate you by saying that the episode of the Dukes of Hazzard he was in, he was the preacher in the episode where Daisy Duke was going to get married. I don't know if that rings a bell to you.
Thank you. You've placated me.
All right. All I had to say was Daisy Duke.
My first Catherine Bach was my childhood crush.
Wasn't she? I mean, how could she not? Anyone who watched that show. So Hawkeye comes in. They patch the call back through to the 407th, where Hawkeye can impersonate General Clayton. And I want your guys' opinion on this. You guys remember which General Clayton is, right? He was the one that kind of the bigger, heavy set guy that showed up for the movie in Yankee Doodle Doctor. That guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Hawkeye doing an impression of him? Because I don't think he is. I think he's doing.
I think he's trying to.
I think. Do you remember the general from the pilot, Hammond, played by G. Wood? General. I think Alan Alda's doing more of a G. Wood impression for General Clayton, but that's some dumb, superficial crap that only me, someone who has watched this series 1,000 times, would point out. But every time I watch, that's one thing that throws me off in this episode. It's like you're not doing General Clayton, you're doing, tell him Margaret Houlihan's calling Major Houlihan. Like he gets all like excited.
Major Houlihan.
He's impersonating the wrong general, but I love it anyway.
I think he's just fucking around for the sake of fucking around. He can now harass Hot Lips and get away with it. So he's just having as much fun as he can.
And I love as Frank's about to storm out, Hawkeye has to be like, "Goodbye, Margaret," and quickly dive out of the way.
Margaret.
Goodbye, Margaret. So Frank, again, being jealous that Tuttle is having an effect on Margaret Houlihan, requests that Tuttle be moved into his quarters because he's been asked to keep an eye on him from Clayton. Completely false. And Henry is getting fed up with all this Tuttle nonsense. He thinks people are starting to play kind of social politics. So he wants to put an end to it. So he calls Tuttle to his office, which means Tuttle has to appear in the flesh in front of Henry at some point, which Hawkeye and Trapper see as a problem because the only solution they can figure is to go back into OR and build one, which I don't think that'll work, but who knows? I love how everyone has started to like conflate the fake social relationship that they have with this person that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like just knowing him as a status symbol. And I'm going to tell you guys something. I never found a way to do it that made sense. I genuinely considered for 2 different years to try to pull something like this off at camp, to try to make a staff member that didn't exist and see how far it would go. But I don't think this is another one of those MASH plots that I don't think you could get away with trying to write in the modern day, because it's like it's too easy to like look up on social media if someone exists.
Yeah.
Or like But I genuinely had a thought, like, could I tell someone that my new range hand, like a new range assistant, showed up today? And if I mean, theoretically, you'd only need one or two other people in on it to like feed the lie. But yeah, it's something I've genuinely thought, could I get away with this prank? Could I get away with this at camp? And like, I almost think I could, but it wouldn't last nearly as long as these guys run it out. Because camp was too small of an ecosystem for that to work. But yeah, if only. If only. We're about 2/3 of the way through the episode, which means it's shenanigan montage time, as is tradition here on MASH. So,
yes.
Henry is looking for Tuttle. Tuttle can't be found. Frank volunteers to go look for Tuttle and is led on a wild goose chase by Hawkeye and Trapper. Hawkeye sends him to post-op. Trapper says he was with Hot Lips and X-Ray. Frank heads to X-Ray and mistakes Radar for Captain Tuttle. And the thing I love here is he's so flustered by like Tuttle's existence and aura that even though Tuttle's he outranks Captain Tuttle, he's like calling him sir and is like apologizing profusely for bothering him, which I find just weird. Like, Frank, you outrank this man. You should just be like commanding him. But again,
Frank's getting all flustered.
Yeah, but Frank's getting flustered because Tuttle is supposedly this, ridiculously crazy, like, upstanding human being, and he wants to like bask in Tuttle's glow and be part and be associated with him, so he doesn't want to like upset him. I just love Frank's like little weaselly like,
Frank weasels.
I'm a major. That means I'm better than you, unless you're someone that can raise my status, and then I am your little bitch boy. I love Frank is such a conundrum. Frank is such a conundrum.
Good old Frankfurt.
Good old Frank. Hawkeye and Trapper realize that Tuttle, being a captain and a surgeon, is entitled to be paid. And he has not been paid for 14 months. Which means the army has to give him...
That's crazy.
Dang. Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway. So the army sends him the money. Hawkeye, impersonating Tuttle, donates it all to Sister Teresa's orphanage and says that all of his future pay is to go to Sister Teresa's orphanage, and that it doesn't matter because he's independently wealthy. And it moves the officer in charge of payroll for I-Corps to like tears. It's just the snowball effect of Tuttle's like aura is just ridiculous.
It is, isn't it?
General Clayton gets wind of this. He wants to use Tuttle as kind of a PR promotion, award him a medal, show off all the good things he's doing. The whole, the whole shtick.
Mm-hmm.
The whole 9 yards. Which leads to the ultimate ending of the episode of everyone's ready to go. Everyone's ready to see Tuttle finally, have him presented with his award in front of Sister Teresa, General Clayton, the whole camp. And Hawkeye has to pull probably I don't want to say the craziest, like the most out of left field ending to an episode for sure thus far, maybe the whole first season or first couple years of the show, where he's just like, yep, Tuttle's not here. In fact, he died just now, like moments ago. Wild, I know, right?
Like, damn, that's crazy. Yeah, he's actually dead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, ooh, sorry about that. Yeah, he died.
And
everyone's like, wait, what the hell? And I love Hawkeye's explanation. It's like, oh, well, we were all just, eating breakfast like normal plebs. Tuttle decided, you know what? I'm just going to go casually do some battlefield surgery. Just a normal everyday activity you can do.
As one does.
And he, quote, jumped into combat with everything a doctor needs. His medical bag, the only thing he was missing.
Plasma bag.
Yeah. All he was missing was his parachute. And I love how he says all that was left of him was his dog tags. And I'm like, everyone is such an idiot, and I love it. And even Margaret's like, oh my God.
Oh my God. No, Captain Tuttle.
And freaking, I love that Colonel Blake says, this is very sad. And I think the only person that could memorialize Tuttle is the person that knew him best, Hawkeye. And Hawkeye's sitting there like, oh Christ. And I love his eulogy for Tuttle, how he's just like, some say that Tuttle was part of all of us, and we all sort of made up Tuttle. It's like, God damn it, Hawkeye. I love it so much. And then all of Tuttle's pension pay is donated to Sister Teresa's. Everyone is moved to tears, including Henry, who says he's the best damn officer of the day we've ever had.
Which implies that this was all over the course of a day, which terrifies me.
Yeah, that a lie could get out of hand that quickly? Yes, it does. And then in our button scene, we see that Radar is confused as to how they got the fake dog tags and the parachute in such quick time. And we learned from Trapper that it was from Major Murdoch, Tuttle's replacement. So, yeah.
And they do sure get transferred quick, don't they?
Yeah, damn, that's crazy. So, yeah, quick synopsis of this episode, because there's not really a lot of plot to discuss. It's just kind of things are just happening, and
they keep digging the hole deeper throughout the episode.
Digging. It's just we're just watching a lie grow to ridiculous proportions, and there's not really much to discuss other than watch the chaos unfold.
Yeah,
but so yeah, that was the very, very quick plot summary of Tuttle. I have a lot to say about Tuttle that's not about the specific episode, so I'll just, before I get to me, I'll ask you guys, what did you guys think? How did you guys feel about this episode after the high of Dear Dad, the low of Edwina, and then we're slowly kind of climbing back up? What did you guys feel about Tuttle?
I liked this episode. I don't know, it was because of just how simple it started out and just snowballed from there, or I don't know. It just seemed like they didn't try to do any crazy, unbelievable shenanigans. Just like, yep, they want to donate, medical supplies, so they're using an imaginary scapegoat, and it kind of just gets out of hand from there. I like episodes like that, where it starts out with a very simple premise, and things just in a believable way, for the most part, just slowly spiral from there. I like that.
This plot is so simple that it shouldn't work, but the writing is so solid, and they don't take it. They don't make it. They don't leave it too simple, but they don't take it to such a ridiculous extreme. They take it to as far as they could go before it starts becoming completely unbelievable, and then they wrap it up. And I think for such a simple premise and such a goofy premise, I think it was written so well that it's greater than the sum of its parts, just because of the acting and the writing. But what do you think?
You said Henry Wiard directed this particular episode?
William Wiard.
Wiard.
Yeah.
And he did
the only other one we've seen so far is Henry Please Come Home.
So
yeah, go on.
I'm just looking forward to seeing. I'd imagine he's got some more episodes he's going to direct in the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing them because he's made a couple of good ones.
I keep saying we're climbing the mountain with these last couple episodes. Edwina was the valley, and Love Story and Tuttle are climbing up the mountain. Next week's episode is also very good in my opinion. William Wiard directs the top of our mountain, the episode that I have been waiting to get to this season. So we have that to look forward to. But yeah, Wilson, what did you think about the episode specifically?
So I got to tell you, I know in my heart of hearts, this is really what if you distill it down, it is another scheme a week kind of deal. But it was funny. The premise was good. The plot was good. I really liked this episode. I personally think this is probably the funniest episode we've had to date, and I'm willing to argue that point. Yeah, I was quite satisfied.
Good. So I'm gonna read some of our audience ratings, and I'll get your guys' ratings, and then there's an audience member posed a question kind of directed at me, and I want to respond to it because I mentioned something last week that I should probably clarify a little bit, but let me pull up our audience reactions here. Chief Smash Forever says this is a 5 out of 5, one of the best episodes of season 1 and a true classic episode of MASH. The jokes from this one are fantastic, and the fact that they convince the camp that he is real and get them to play along makes it even better. Whenever searching for early year episodes, this is a must. And then he has a comment I'll get to in a little bit. This lightsaber kills fascists says 4 out of 5. A great early classic episode that really started to establish the MASH TV show humor and sensibilities. Chad Smith says 4 out of 5. It's great how everyone tries to manifest a relationship with this fictional campmate, each for their own reasons. Top tier season 1 episode and a hijinks at the front done right. So yeah,
that's very well put.
So with that being said, what would you guys rate Tuttle?
I give this one a solid 4 out of 5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm right along Jared there. I'm giving it a 3.9.
3.9. All right. I am right there with you guys. I'm also going to give it a 4. It is a very simple episode. It's not anything crazy. It doesn't do anything super wild. It's just a good episode. It's just a solidly written, solidly performed episode. It doesn't try to do anything too complicated. It doesn't try to stretch the premise out further than makes sense. It is solid and beautiful and mwah. Now, I do have a problem with this episode, but it doesn't have to do with the episode itself. And I do want to address it because I don't want to say I got called out, but it got mentioned in one of the audience comments. Chief Smash Forever followed up his rating with the comment of that he got the sense that I didn't like the episode based on some things I said last week. And he was interested to hear why. So I kind of hinted at it with Love Story and with this episode that there are a handful of episodes of MASH that in all rights are fantastic 5 out of 5 episodes for a lot of people. And I agree. I love Tuttle. I love Love Story. Another one that falls into this category for me is an episode we'll see in a couple seasons called Adam's Ribs. They're excellent episodes. But because they're such excellent and well-loved episodes, and they're funny episodes with well-written jokes, the jokes get referenced in different, like, MASH community posts or MASH fan pages so goddamn much. And again, you guys know this about me from working at camp. I am a little bit anal retentive when it comes to comedy, specifically when it's being, how do I explain this? Tuttle as an episode is hilarious. The premise is hilarious. But every time I go on a CF MASH fan page post, like I saw one the other day that was, who did you think was the better antagonist, Frank Burns or his replacement, Charles Winchester? I'm like, ooh, I'm curious what people have to say about this. I open up the comments, and no joke, like a third to half of the comments are Captain Tuttle, lol, Captain Tuttle, lol, Captain Tuttle, lol. And it's like, the joke itself is good. The number of times it's repeated bugs me. So it has nothing to do with the episode itself. It's just, I don't know. I get annoyed when good comedy is over repeated just for the sake of saying, look, see, I get the joke. Ha ha ha. So yeah, that's just a personal thing to me. That's kind of why I roll my eyes at, for Love Story, it's Abach. For the Adam's Rip episode, it's you didn't order the coleslaw. You know, that's all these little in-jokes from Ash that are funny in the episode just get beaten to death elsewhere. And it's part of the show being as popular as it is. It's just the closest thing I could relate it to that you guys would be more familiar with would be the Skittles thing at camp. When we worked at the Boy Scout camp, there were things that we didn't tell the scouts, like operational parts of camp that kind of we called it the Iron Curtain, right? You don't show the kids how you plan the skit. You don't show them how we do some of the stuff in the background to make camp happen because it kind of ruins the magic, quote unquote. And part of that was we aren't paid in, currency. We're paid in Skittles. We aren't here for the money. We're here for the enjoyment of doing the job, which, yes, 100% I agree with. What bugs me is when staff members took it so far as to when kids would genuinely be interested in working at camp, which is something we needed to promote and keep going because that's how we keep our staff numbers up. Kids would be like, oh, well, what do you make at your job? And there'd be some staffers who like, ha ha, what do you mean? I get paid in Skittles. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, shut up and answer their questions so they want to work here. Like, Tuttle falls into that category for me. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like yeah. It's you're taking the joke is funny the first time. It's not funny when 1,000 people are making the same joke. Anyway, with that tangent being done, Tuttle is still a fantastic episode, and it's just that little thing, again, not related to the episode itself, that it's a pet peeve. It's a pet peeve, and like many pet peeves, it's irrational and dumb to anyone else except the person who believes in it. So there you go. That's my long-winded answer. And again, there are going to be a couple MASH episodes, a handful of them throughout the rest of the seasons where I'm going to love the episode, but there's just that one thing in the episode that's kind of is ruined for me because it's just over referenced. But anyway, with that long tirade over, that was Tuttle. Good episode. I am so happy because the next 2 to 4 episodes are just fucking bangers. We are hitting the high watermark of this season right now. The next episode that we have is Ring Banger. This is probably the first. MASH has this weird, I don't want to say stigma. It has this weird coincidence that a lot of now very well-known actors had parts on MASH before they were really truly big time famous. And we have one of the first instances of that, depending on your argument of what role made this person famous, quote unquote. But we do have a guest actor next week. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's a fun, kind of ridiculous episode. And I know we're still a month out from recording this episode, but I'm going to start putting the word out here now. After the Ring Banger, we have the episode Sometimes You Hear the Bullet. If you have never watched MASH, if you are listening to this podcast and you're watching MASH for the first time along with it, or you haven't watched it in a very long time and you're going to be watching this episode for the first time in a while, please, even if you've never written the podcast before or left a comment before, this is one of those episodes where I'm going to beg you, if this is your first time seeing Sometimes You Hear the Bullet, I would love to get your reaction to this episode. If this is your 107th time of watching Sometimes You Hear the Bullet, I would also love to hear from you, but I particularly would like to hear people's first stories of their first time experiencing Sometimes You Hear the Bullet. So again, that's not next episode. Next episode's the Ring Banger. But if you're going to write to me, if you're going to write to us for any episode of the show, I really want to hear your guys' opinions on Sometimes You Hear the Bullet. So if I'm ever going to assign homework, that is the homework. Please, please, please reach out to us and tell us what you thought of Sometimes You're the Bullet.
Yes,
But,
Mr. Anthony.
Thank you. That's 2 weeks from now. Next week's a ring banger. It's going to be a fun one. Do you guys have any comments before we get out of here?
Avoid gatherings of large people.
Yeah. COVID is still a thing, people. Please be healthy, be safe. If you feel sick, don't go.
Be
visit
healthy,
people.
be safe. If you're sick, call out from work. Just do it.
You never know when you'll find a county line sign of your place of origin in an odd place. And
I don't think it was in an odd place. I think it was where it should have been, in my opinion. In the antique
and
shop,
that's
of
your
course.
opinion, and you're entitled to it.
Just want to remind our friendly audience that Sister Teresa and the Orphans merch is going to be available coming soon.
Stop promising merch items we can't deliver.
Record scratch. Hi, this is the Best Care Anywhere legal department. That's a joke. All right, carry on.
Low-key, backtracking a couple episodes now, I really need to find a way to get Kimono Dragon on a t-shirt somewhere.
You do.
I
really do.
I will absolutely draw a higher quality version with like solid lines.
That's perfect. As is beautiful. If you guys have not, go to our Twitter, go to our Instagram, and please look at the freaking Kimono Dragon artwork that Wilson created, because it is. If we were just a little bit bigger and a little bit more on top of our crap, I would absolutely be selling t-shirts with that logo on it. But that is a whole kettle of fish that I do not want to open, because it's a whole thing. But
that is the second time you've used that phrase this episode. Who is keeping fish in kettles? Who?
Don't ask questions. Mind your business, bitch.
The Italians.
I knew it.
All right. We are slowly losing our sanity. Join us next week for the Ring Banger. We'll talk to you guys soon. As always, reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Best Care Anywhere Podcast, at bestcare4077. Email us at thebestcareanywherepod@gmail.com. Please reach out to us. Let us know you're out there. Rate us highly on whatever podcast thing you listen to us on. Tell your friends about us. Make that force your friends to watch MASH and this podcast. Do it. That's not a request. That is a demand. Do it now. We will talk to you guys later. Bye.
Toodles.
Get out.
The time has come for us to say sayonara.